So recording in progress. We are live here with AO Performance, and Andreas is live in English again. And this time, actually, it's a long time friend now. And one of my favorite brains in the world. You will know in a bit why. One of the smartest guy on this planet when it comes to what we are going to talk about. Sport nutrition, health, just to be your best self, I would guess, right? The holistic approach I'm always talking about, a lot of it comes from my dear friend, Dr. Robert Rakowski. Welcome.
Well, Andreas, it's always great to be connected with you. You know, every time I see you, better, stronger, faster, smarter, finding ways to add value to the world. So I'm ready for a fun conversation.
Let's do it. Yeah, it's been a few years now. We since we hooked up the first time. I think we're through Johnny Oduya, right?
Yeah, that's, Johnny and Marcus Krieger, and, you were doing what you do so magically, and they had a passion for sports nutrition. Interestingly enough, I was teaching first in Sweden. I have to figure out, I don't know if Johnny first and Marcus first came to a seminar that I taught in Sweden, but they also followed me in the States. So, and funny story, Johnny, I'll just say it briefly. He says, Dr. Bob, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. And I said, well, Johnny, don't grow up. You're just having too much fun. And, the world is enjoying watching you win Stanley Cups. So
yeah,
fun stuff.
Yeah. And they won a couple each. So they did well. So it's fun. Johnny is actually into really breath work now. I do a lot of breath work, which is, I think that's a lot of kind of exploding in the world right now, how important it is to breathe. And I think that's a really good thing. So he started up his own Hale Center here in Stockholm. So he's still doing well. So he's still into helping us perform better and feel better and live better, right? So actually he invited me to, I think it was, you did a talk at a hospital in Dallas, I think.
I did.
Yeah. And I think it was like 8 hours too. So it was a long day, and I think it was pretty much only doctors at that venue, right? And me and Johnny.
Yeah.
And I mean, after the first 10 minutes, I was in love with you right away. And it takes a lot to impress me because I've been around for a few years now. But when the doctors start asking you questions, that's when you really hit me. Wow, this guy is for real. You know a lot. Because I mean, anyone can memorize a lecture and then you can go from there. But when you would put on a spot at a hospital in for like, I don't know, 200, 300 doctors, and they ask some pretty sophisticated questions to put it simple. But I was blown away by how much you know about everything, and the way you handle the questions and the way you explain everything in a really simple way, but in a tough subjects, was really impressive. That's how you blew me away. And I was like, I need to get to know this guy. And then it turned out that you were even a better person than you are on stage. So that blew me away even more. So I'm really happy that we became friends.
Wow, Andreas, it's a match. We're a match.
Yeah.
People that are birds of a feather flock together. You're such an expert at what you do. You're so valuable for the world. But I want to share one of my favorite quotes from Einstein. Any intelligent fool can make something bigger and more complex, but it takes genius and a touch of courage to go the other way, to simplify. And you're awesome at that. And I certainly try to be good at that as well.
You're certainly awesome at that too. I think we share that. So what I want to talk about today, because I'm doing this podcast just to make people, feel better, move better, perform better, enhance quality of life pretty much. And I think who's better to talk to than you? And you're the first, actually, like, I haven't talked a lot about like nutrition and supplementation and stuff like that, because my first question to you will be like this. Why do you think, I mean, in our field of work, I feel that talking about diets and talk about nutrition, talk about supplementation, it feels like people are so divided on, like, either you believe in this or you believe in that, then it's going to be a war. It's like I'm saying that heavy back squats is not good for you. And if I talk bad about back squats, people hate me. I'm like, dude, it's just an exercise. And I think it's when it comes to nutrition too, like if you say that, gluten is not good for you or dairy products is not good for you, people will hate you if you say that, or people will agree with you. And it's not only that, just like I feel it's a lot and about diets and everything. Like, why do you think like we're so divided when it comes to nutrition?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that I think people are addicted to their bad choices. And by the way, some of that is by design, but, we go back thousands of years. Some of the greatest thinkers of all time, we'll go back to Hippocrates, who said, let thy food be thy medicine. Then we go to Lucretius, who said, one man's food's another man's poison. Now, here's my quote. The sad reality today is most men's food is a poison for all humanity. You look at these herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, genetically modified plants that were designed so they could intoxicate the environment even further. And we're seeing the downside of that. And so, are there some people that are so unbelievably genetically gifted that they can, as many of my clients have said, for a period of time, out-train a bad diet? We've seen those people. But when we look at the Hall of Famers, the people with the longevity careers, they dotted the I's, they crossed the T's. They didn't just, eat right and supplement right. They would eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right every single day. And that's the difference between longevity and a flash in the pan.
That's so true. I agree 100% with you. And so how can we, what can we do about that? Like, just to ease that war between the haters and the lovers of certain nutrients and supplementations. And so, I mean, there are believers out there that believe that it's enough to eat a little bit a day with, as long as it's okay food. And some people say like you really need supplementation from an early age, especially if you train. What's your take on that?
Well, if we're going to talk about turning around the haters, give me a week and I'll often give you your life back. I mean, here's what I tell people. Bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. So if you wanted to groove a neurologic pattern and a motor pattern, you're a master of that. You're not going to say, hey, do this once a week for 5 minutes. No. I will often dose people every waking hour, and sometimes they crash and burn for a few days, but on the backside of it, they say, wait a minute, I forgot what it felt like to feel this good. Tell me what to do from here.
Yeah, but I think too, like it's especially here in Sweden, there are some pretty hardcore scientists that like pretty much speak the other way that we maybe think about nutrition and health and diets. And they say they have all the facts and the science says this, and there's no studies saying that we are, or, this doesn't matter what you eat pretty much. And I mean, they are pretty hard down at what they believe and they're referring to science. So is there like science going both directions? I mean, you're smiling at me like this.
Actually, not good science,
No.
I mean, so when you start looking at science, what does the science show? So, we have this global circumstance. So for a period of time, I was doing a daily science and fact-based update.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at things, it's well known that in the last 50 plus years, we have depleted the soil. So it goes back over 100 years. Farmers found out, and maybe scientists first, that they could put 3 elements in the soil: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But it takes 30 elements to make healthy plants, animals, and humans. You don't need to be a math major to realize that if you pull 30 out for every 3 you put back in, eventually you're going to have a problem. And by the way, the world recognizes that we have global non-renewable mineral depletion that is creating long-term health risks. That is what the science shows. Now, part of the reason I brought about the 100-day update, at one point I pulled up a stat PubMed on nutrition and immune system, over 27,000 published medical studies. So you can't say that there's not science to back it up. There absolutely is.
Good. I just wanted to hear you say that. It makes me feel good too. So if we talk about do you think there's a difference between sport nutrition and nutrition for average Joe?
Well, certainly, right? In terms of frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing, et cetera. But, Let me tell an interesting story. I lectured at a major international conference. I think it was about 8-9 years ago. And the title of the article that I used for the thesis of my seminar was the application of performance nutrition in critical care medicine. And they found out that the things that can take an elite athlete to the next level may be exactly what's needed to save a dying person's life. And I might even make the suggestion that the dying person needs more frequency, more duration, more intensity, more quality. But now here's the downside. They often don't have the capacity to absorb. So now we even have to do more in terms of enzymes, maybe hydrochloric acid, get creative ways. And, I'm not even opposed to intravenous nutrition in circumstances where the digestive tract is so dysfunctional.
Yeah. I think it's when you mention like hyaluronic acid, I read a study yesterday about, because I started to use CBD oil for the first time in the last 6 weeks, mostly because my mom has like severe nerve damage after a back surgery, and she got nerve pain from hell. And I was reading a lot about it, and I was thinking like maybe that CBD can like calm her nervous system a little bit, and maybe he can ease out the nerve pain. And it seems like it does. It's unbelievable result for the last 6 weeks for her. And so, but I wanted to try it too, because I wanted to know what I'm talking about. And because I'm big in this, this fascia tissue, this collagen tissue in our bodies, that's outside the cells, what we call the ECM, and the fluids outside the cells is, you have the collagen fibers outside the cells, and we got the fluids, the ground substance we call it. And one of the main sources there is hyaluronic acid. And what it shows now in science and studies is that the CBD oil releases the hyaluronic acids in the cells, which makes sense why we feel better. Have you read about that? And did you know that from before?
No, you're just educating me on that now. I'm a big fan of CBD, and the studies keep coming out more and more. And of course, it depends. There's lots of different sources, but most experts are now calling hemp a superfood, and that's one of the nicest sources of CBD.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. What your take on that? If you like that, or if you used it yourself for a long time, or have you just started using it, or have you used it on your client or your patients, or what's your
relatively recent? We had to get to a point where we could be very, very certain that what we were getting was good quality. So I'll share. I was at a license renewal seminar, and healthcare practitioners and someone with good intentions gave a government worker CBD that wasn't pure. He tested positive for THC, lost a multi-$100,000 a year job for it, and went back and sued the healthcare provider.
Yeah.
And you know what? The healthcare provider was liable. He didn't do the due diligence on the products. And so, given the level of athletes that I treat, I need to dot every I, cross every T, double cross-reference everything. And my guys aren't going to flunk a drug test. I have to have that level of certainty. So now there's suppliers where I have that level of certainty.
Yeah. And we have that in Sweden too, because that is not, THC in Sweden are not allowed at all. So if you're going to sell CBD here in Sweden, they have to be 0.00000, which is good. So we know if it's legit here in Sweden, it's going to be legit for our athletes as well. But there are better and worse here too, of course. But I'm happy to hear that, because the results I've seen in my mom is just, I was teaching for 3 days during this weekend, and I told this story to my students or participants, and I couldn't hold back. I almost started to cry, because it's so big for me to see. I mean, she cut down like 70% of her nerve pain medications because of the CBD oil. So for me, it's just unreal. So I'm happy it's exploding, because I think this is going to be a big thing, the next big thing.
Well, Andreas, we can spread that out a little further. We've got nature's pharmacy. Some call it God's pharmacy. We've got man's pharmacy. Hey, both have application, but we know there's a huge downside to man's pharmacy, and especially when it comes to pain. We have a higher number of people dying every year from overdose of prescription opioids, painkillers, than in automobile accidents. So it's a significant issue here.
Yeah. Did you see that Netflix Dope Sick?
I did not, but I like the
Okay.
title.
Yeah, it's about oxys. So you should see that one. It's scary. So I think it's I think we're better off with the CBD stuff.
Yeah, you know, as I tell my patients and my students, there are clear pharmacological guidelines, and is if you're going to use a pharmaceutical, lowest dose, shortest duration.
Yeah.
Not a forever type thing.
No, exactly. And that's what I love about you. And you were touching on that, because I was thinking to myself before I called you up here, like, I wonder how long it will take before he mentioned his magnificent seven, right? This seven, right? And those words are, I mean, if you live after that, you will feel you have a pretty good life, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and there's many sevens, right? So we did say eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right, but we're also mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful. Why not build a great life in all those areas?
Exactly. So if we let's break those down a little bit. So start with those seven that I've heard you mention a million times, and just to do some short stuff of every word that is really good for all of us, and maybe some extra for the athletes.
Sure. So let's start with eat right. And so very simply, Jack LaLanne said this: if God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. Michael Pollan, you know, he wrote In Defense of Food, top 100 most influential people in the world, at least on 1 year. He said, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Now for the people that really want the deep dive, and we can encapsulate it quick: eat real food, eat clean food, not too much, not too often, every color, every day, in a way that honors your physiology, your genetics, and your body goals, mostly plants. And we could break all those pieces down, but, you know, not too much, not too often. Calorie restriction is the most proven mechanism of longevity ever. Certainly doesn't work for athletes because they're burning so much extra. But how about not too often? Intermittent fasting, hundreds of thousands of published medical studies now, and all showing that it helps the body recycle more efficiently decaying, dying, destructive proteins. And so many different benefits.
I've done that for, is it 2 years now?
Yeah.
Best thing I ever done. It's absolutely amazing. I don't eat, like, I usually do like 18 hours between. So I keep the fasting for 18 hours and I eat for 6.
You know, so let's chat about that. That's my typical routine as well.
Okay.
And it really depends on your genetics. Some people can get by with 14, some can get by with 16, some need 18. It's basically called the ApoE genotype. That might be too detailed for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, when you start looking at this as something that people can do, here's what I encourage them. You know, if you're used to waking up and eating something, push it back 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're used to eating a late dinner, move it up 2 minutes, and then repeat that every day. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Well, by the time you move up 4 minutes a day, 30 days later, a month later, you're up 2 hours. You've extended your intermittent fasting 2 hours, then 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. And then you're there. You're there for the elite club, and it's doable. I've seen people with extreme weight challenges, discipline challenges, food addiction challenges. They can handle 2 minutes a day.
Absolutely. And I think like people ask me when I talk about this, and they like, well, what's your energy like in the morning, in before noon? I'm like, it's so much better. I can't even compare, because when I eat breakfast, I get tired after. When I don't eat, I seem to get I get more and more energy throughout the day. And when it comes to like noon and 1 or 2, I'm like, I'm not really hungry. I know I need to fuel my tank, but I'm not really hungry, you know, but I feel like absolutely amazing. And even if I train in the morning, I usually train early in the morning. Doesn't matter. I still eat at 1 or 2. And people like, don't you need to eat right after? But you need protein right after? I'm like, no, not really. What do you say about that? Do I need to eat right after? Should I have a shake, or should I break my fast? I don't think so. I don't want to, but what do you say about that?
At this point of your life, at this point of your training, the answer is no. Now if we have an anabolic athlete, they're probably not going to do well with intermittent fasting, and they're probably going to want to get that pre and post high quality workout. And there was a University of Texas PhD that wrote a book a few decades ago called Nutrient Timing. He was right on the money. I tell the story. I was actually teaching in Halmstad, Sweden, at the Alico Barbell Center, and there was an elite Olympic lifter there. And what I found very, very fascinating, very, very technical lifts, very, very heavy, but he had a pile of capsules, next to the area where he was training. And he would do a set in typically 3 reps. That's about all your nervous system can efficiently handle for an Olympic lift, something so technical. Yep. And he grabbed some capsules and he washed it down. I watched him do this, his sets were 5 minutes spaced apart, but who knows, maybe 10 times I saw him take these capsules. Finally, I went up there, I said, what the heck are you doing? He says, I'm actually taking branched chain amino acids. I said, between every set. He says, look, I've been doing this for a long time and I feel better when I do it. Well, the proof's in the pudding. If it's working for him, why change it?
Exactly.
And when you're elite, you kind of know your body. At least I hope you do.
Yeah, exactly. At least I hope you do. That's a really good one. All right. So intermittent fasting, eat right. Anything else you want to add to that?
Well, even though I said mostly plants, and we do have a hybrid mouth and teeth and digestive tract, the carnivore diet is getting press and kudos, and for good reason. So here's what we know, and we're going to get to the gut eventually, but around the world, most people have dysbiosis. And I'm not talking 51% of the people. We have more bugs. I'm talking 90-something percent. We have more bugs.
Explain shortly what that is.
Sure.
For people that doesn't know.
We have more bugs in our gut than we have cells in our body. Yeah. And there's a book entitled, 10% Human. And what it's describing is all of our DNA. Most of our DNA is bug DNA. And what I tell people is every bug, every cell for that matter, eats, drinks, and goes to the bathroom. So the difference between good bugs and bad is what they eat and what they poop. Good bugs eat poop nutrients. Bad bugs eat nutrients, poop toxins. Well, the bugs in our gut are vegans. They're not carnivores. And when you eat a carnivore diet, Stanford just completed a big study on this. Within 24 hours, the more vulnerable bugs, the sick bugs, the toxic bugs start dying off. So I put people, extreme cases on 2 weeks of carnivore, and I can think of one individual, 50 pounds over fat, super high blood pressure, diabetes, not well controlled, within 2 weeks of just carnivore. And by the way, the strict carnivore is only red meat, salt, and water. That's pretty strict.
Yeah.
He lost 15 pounds. His blood pressure went from maybe 195 over 115 to 137 over 85.
Wow.
Blood sugar dropped dramatically. I don't know what his numbers were, but I had an out of control diabetic that I did a similar thing with. His sugars, we use different units in the States. He was running about 190. And within 2 weeks, he was down to 80 consistently. So wow. There's some pretty phenomenal things that can happen, but short term. Yeah. And by the way, this guy's also battling prostate cancer. So that's an interesting little wrinkle. We didn't want that, sugar out of control. But I said, look, do you think you could do 3 consecutive days a week because your sugar was so well managed? He says, I think I could. So we're looking at that. And by the way, his PSA, I think, went from, prostate specific antigen, a cancer marker, went from 125 to 75 over that period of time. So
oh, wow.
Pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. So if you could describe that diet a little bit, what would you do then?
Sure. Well, red meat, salt, and water. And so
that's
what kind of red meat? Well, believe it or not, in my book, ostrich is red meat, but so is bison, so is buffalo. I don't know, buffalo and bison are different. Beefalo, cow, there you're there. But what we want is grass-fed organic. You don't want something that's been fed a terrible diet and antibiotics. Get the clean stuff, the good stuff.
And how much do you eat a day?
As much as you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Andreas, you're a lean guy anyways, but I'll tell you what, when people are shredding the fat. So I thought, well, let me try it, and picture worthy lean in just a matter of days. I stay pretty lean anyways, but whatever fat was there, gone.
So what do you say about these red meat opponents? People that are really against red meat.
It's not a forever thing, that's for sure. And so, we do a reset on the short note. But, if you follow some great thinkers like Jordan Peterson, he wrote 12 Rules for Life, 5 million YouTube followers. He's a brainiac. His daughter had severe autoimmunity, rheumatoid arthritis. By 20, had most of the major joints of her body replaced and was still in severe pain. Tried the carnivore diet. Within a fairly short time, her pain went away. And she said, Dad, you should try this. Well, it worked so well for him that he's been 4.5 years, only red meat, salt, and water. And he says very clearly, I never cheat. That's what he said on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said his nerves are better, his skin is better, his brain is better, his body's better, everything's better. So pretty fascinating.
So that's it. So he's been eating only that for 4 years. Nothing else.
You can find Jordan. You can find that from the mouth of Jordan Peterson. Now me, hey, I'm still eat real food, clean food, not too much, not too often, every color, every day, in a way that honors your physiology, your genetics, body goals, mostly plants. He's honoring his body right now, and it's working well for him. So all I can say is God bless him. He's a smart guy.
So if you want, let's say someone wants to try this, how many days would you just say that we should try it?
Depends on the case. Okay. I think 2 weeks is enough to see a significant difference in just about anybody. Okay. Now, with that said, I say just about anybody. 10 people I put on that, 9 had profound benefits, 1 no change.
Okay.
Now this guy was out of state, so do I trust him? I do. I think he was clean and good, but you got to have that factor too. Sometimes people are just getting stuff that they're sneaking it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add to eat right?
Well, you mentioned how much, right? So we said not too much, not too often, but notice what you said. 18 hours on a fast, you're not hungry. Now, our satiety center in our brain is largely controlled by our nutrient status. So, people would look at you, they see good skin, they see good hair, they see good muscle tone, they see good body composition, they see good habits. They need to know that those things come together with great food choices to create great nutrient status, supplementation along the way as well. And if you're always hungry, you're missing something. And if you're well nourished, it's a lot easier to go long times without food.
So true. Well put. Thank you. All right. Next one.
Well, when it comes to drink, right, here's the simple thing. The earth is 2/3 water. Our body's 2/3 water. 2/3 of that water should be inside the cell. So we want to be flushing out that body water, so the standard that they used for so long was take your body weight in pounds, or we could go kilos and say, whatever it is in kilos, drink that many ounces. Now I got to go to mLs, multiply by 30 to get to milliliters, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, you'll add another 10% because the 2.2 kilograms per pound conversion. Yeah. And then an extra 150 mLs for every 15 minutes of exercise.
So I can translate that to Swedish because I think have you read You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty?
Oh, I've read Your Body's Many Cries for Water.
Exactly.
Which was probably the precursor.
Exactly.
But not the You're Sick, You're Thirsty. No, but Your Body's Many Cries for Water. Classic. Really classic.
Same thing. Then he goes like, so if you weigh 100 kilos, you should have like 3.3 liters a day of water. So there you can count. So I think it's like 0.033 for every kilo you weigh. Yeah. Pretty much 100 kilos is 3.3 liters. So you can count from that. So that's a Swedish.
Better job simplifying that than I did. Well done, my friend.
Talk about genius, eh?
You're there. You're there.
No. All right. So that's water. What else because you're into herbs. I know you're a big herb guy, which is I am too. Do you think you should drink like herbs and tea and stuff every night or in the morning or whatever?
Well, here's what I tell people. You can drink water, you can drink turbocharged water, right? So, I have a superfood infused coffee, reishi infused coffee right here in front of me. Yep. Same thing with tea. What you're going to find out is there are so many health benefits to terrible coffee. Mm-hmm. A 5.1 million people year follow-up study, people that drank the most coffee live the longest. It prevents diabetes, certain forms of cancer, Parkinson's. There's a lot of different things. And that's what bad coffee, imagine what good coffee could do. So there's certain nutrients, antioxidants within there that can have benefit, but quality always matters. Quality coffee, quality tea. If it's turbocharged, reishi infused, my favorite, all the better.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I first saw you in Dallas on that hospital. You were holding a cup of coffee in your hand, and you said that it was like a miracle coffee, or you liked it so much. And I started drinking it that day, and I still drinking it every day, and I love it. And it makes, I mean, that helped. We were talking about my mom before, and that helped a lot with her. I mean, we changed her diet too, of course, but when we added the spores, which is also the same thing that comes from this coffee herb, right? And I mean, still big difference. She's still on the sport. She's still drinking that coffee. She can't be without that coffee. And you know what's funny is her legs. I mean, because of her nerve pain, her legs tend to swallow up when she doesn't have the spores or the coffee. Yeah, like sometimes they're out because sometimes, or sometimes I forget to order. So you can blame me too. That's fine. But so especially her right leg turns to blow up and it will get really swollen. And I promise you, Bob, it takes less than 24 hours after she gets the spores, her legs are back to normal.
That's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's unreal. And it happens like during these 6 years, it's happened probably like 10 times when I didn't order it. and same thing every time. It's just fantastic. So, and just for me, when I started to drink it, I had like pollen issues, and because I'm eating really well and I'm training and taking care of myself. Yeah, I work a lot, but I'm still, I'm big on recovery anyway, but I still didn't all the way manage to beat that pollen allergies until I started this coffee. And then I haven't, since I started that coffee 6 years ago, I haven't had one day with pollen since. So it's good stuff. I agree. And what it's called is Ganoderma lucidum, or reishi, as you said, right? And again, there's a lot of studies on PubMed. You can read about it, right?
Thousands, and then 5,000 plus years of human clinical use. So just adds help to the habit. I like what you said. People don't need to be reminded to drink their coffee or tea. So it's a really good way to up their level of nutrition.
Yeah. So what's so good about it? What makes Ganoderma so powerful? What's in it?
Well, it's the consensus top superfood. So it's got all the fabulous 50, all the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, and water in doses that make a difference to human health. 430 unique molecules, 79 of which are antimicrobial. So it can kill off infection. There's a virus we don't talk about, but there was a study early on showing that it was very effective against that virus, even within PubMed. So it's interesting how it's hard to get some of that information out, but most people I know that were consistent didn't have any challenge at all. So we're thankful for that. It alkalizes the system. It modulates the inflammatory process. It's a natural immune modulator, meaning that if there's too much immune activity, either allergy or autoimmunity, it calms it down. Too little, either infection or cancer, it picks it up. And by the way, it's proven against at least 15 different types of cancer, including pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, the real tough ones, and even glioblastoma, the most aggressive brain cancer. So pretty powerful herb.
Yeah. And if you guys wonder why I drink that coffee, now you know. Right? All right. So that was Eat Right. Next one.
Well, Think Right. And, now that one we could talk about for multiple podcasts, semesters, whatever. One of my favorite things to do is when I have the elites that I'm working with, I'll ask them the question, how much of the game is mental? And I might ask you that. What do you think? How much of the game is mental?
99%.
I've had people say as much as 100, Andreas. In fact, an NFL defensive back, I said, come on, it can't be 100%. You got to have some physical skills. He said, Bob, at our level, we can all play. We've all got those physical skills. But the difference between those of us that can thrive and bounce back, it's the mental game, the mental game, the mental game. But so when you start looking at that, Dan Amen has a TED Talk. He says, what I learned after 83,000 brain scans, and he learned you can change your brain. You can change your thoughts of pattern. You can change your mood. But he then wrote a book called The End of Mental Illness. He asked the question, what if brain health and mental health are one and the same? And they're very, very close. So what I tell people when we start blending this together is the brain is the most nutrient dependent, energy dependent, stress vulnerable, toxin vulnerable. So we want to dot the I's and cross the T's there. You know, most athletes realize when they're learning a skill, they're learning it with their brain translated through their body, but they can learn the mindset. They can learn pattern recognition. And there are even, you know, sophisticated training systems. I use something called NeuroTracker. You know, it was originally developed for the elites, and then it became to be known for usable for everybody. But you spend 6 minutes 3 times a week learning to focus on multiple object tracking. And, you know, people that do it, their brain gets better. You know, 50 plus published medical studies. So powerful stuff. So take good care of your brain and your body. They work together. And there's a book, by the way, called With Winning in Mind, and it's by an Olympic gold medalist who trained medalists named Lanny Basham. He said, look, high-level competition is 90% mental. How much time do you think you should spend training the mental game? And, you know, he's arguing a lot. And I agree, certainly more than most people do.
Absolutely. And why do you think, like, both you and I are used to pro athletes, and it's still like so few that actually train their mind? I mean, like, to get for me, I'm still in shock about that. Like, why do you not? We train so much physical stuff, and we just forget about this one, the most important one we have, like, to strengthen that. It's just what that your NFL guy said. Like, that's what it's gonna. I mean, there's not many people that go pro, and those guys who go pro, they will have the mindset.
Well, but Andres, what I'm going to say is my experience with most of them is they're what I would call unconscious competence. They don't know why they're so good, and they also don't know what they don't know.
No.
And so,
love it.
you know, ultimately, you've got to find a way to build a bridge to that. And my favorite way is clinical trial. Let's try training your brain for a week. You know, and when we do it with our track stars, hey, that's easy. What's your time? When we're doing it with our power athletes, how are your reps, right? Are you getting an extra rep? Are you able to add a few pounds to the bar? It might be a little harder with the defensive back, you know? Hey, are you reading the quarterback more effectively? Are you reading the route more effectively? Are you be able to watch the hips a little while you're watching the quarterback's eyes, you know? And there's guys that can do that. And again, they're unconsciously competent, but imagine taking some of the functions here and taking them to here. And at the level of guys we work with, oh, that's epic. That, you know, that's championship. That's many, many millions. That might be a few extra seasons. All that stuff comes together.
100%. What do you say about, like, mindset in general? I mean, there are people that, like we talked about in the beginning, like, people are believing in different, depending what kind of coach they have and who they're listening to, and who they, like, an authority that maybe told them something when they were younger or whatever. How do you think a mindset's going to play a role growing if we talk about athletes now? Do you think they can actually believe in, let's say, not eating? I mean, even my kids said when they were like 15 and younger, they're like, is it that important to eat healthy? I don't feel any different. I can eat whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't feel much different when you're 14 or 12, right? But I try to educate them, and now they understand, of course. But most people, or most kids growing up, athletes, don't have that kind of educated parents when it comes to nutrition. So you just listen to a coach, often maybe not the best coach, but they believe in something. And I know that when you have a strong mindset and you believe in something, do you think that's enough, or will they break down eventually?
Oh, they're going to break down, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I'm a huge fan of quantum possibility, and we can create a lot of great things with our mind, but we are physical beings, right? We're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful. You know, the physical part needs nourishment. It needs movement. It needs recovery. And you cannot get away from that. You just can't. And athletes that try, they're going to have a very, very short career.
So true. All right, on to the next one.
All right. So we got move right. Right now we're in your wheelhouse. Eat right, drink right,
Yeah.
think right, move right.
Yeah.
So, you know, over time, I've come to look at this very, very differently. And you've helped me with my evolution. My current thinking is every joint, every range of motion, pain-free every single day. That's for whole body movement. There's nothing you shouldn't move because use it or lose it is real. And the things that I've taught to the elites all over, you want to use every fiber type, every energy system proportional to the demands of your specific sport, but you want to use all of them. You know, you got to train that aerobic metabolism, even if you're a power lifter, just ever so slightly. And you got to train that power system, even if you're the aerobic athlete, but again, ever so slightly. So that's where we go proportional to the demands of their event.
You want to call that? He nailed it. I love it. All right, next one.
All right, sleep right.
Yep.
So, you know,
Big one.
When we start looking at this, it's pretty phenomenal that I think a lot of people are aware that we have a sleep deprived world. You know, these artificial lights, the blue light is going to be a melatonin inhibitor. We're all running on too much cortisol. Different conversation, but you look at the best of the best. And Anders Ericsson is Swede, right? He passed this last year. God bless his wonderful soul, but he wrote a book called Peak. And it didn't matter what area he was looking at. Could be business, could be academics, could be chess, could be sport, could be music. He found out the best of the best slept 8.6 hours a night. Now, there might be, and the stats are pretty obscure, but it's a very small percentage. Like even less than 1% of people can get by with less than 6 hours a night. But, you know, we have that bell-shaped curve, but most people are going to need that 8.6 hours. Use this brain more, you need to recover it more. And we now know there's a lot of brain cleaning that happens, a lot of great things for our body when we sleep. And when we don't sleep, we don't get that level of rejuvenation. And you start looking when I've taught at sports conferences, Tom Brady, you know, meticulous sleep routine, LeBron James, same deal. Even Michael Phelps, he didn't have the best diet, but thank God he trained like an animal with great genetics and recovered. He slept very rigorously and took a nap every day. So powerful stuff.
Yeah, same thing. I had the opportunity to work with the U.S. Ski team, the Alpine ski team, the women's. And I sat down with Michaela Schifrin and I helped her a little bit and listened to her like story and the way she was thinking about her development and sleeping and recovery and training and everything. And I know it's been articles about this after, it was probably before I heard it the first time because it's obviously known, but she sleeps at least 10 hours a night and then she take a 2-hour nap during the day. So she sleeps 12 hours a day, which means she can recover more and she can train more than the rest. And then you wonder why she's the best skier ever, pretty much in the women's side. Unbelievable. And I was in shock when I heard it. And it's like, wow, 12 hours a day. And she's strict about it. So strict. Nothing can change her sleep routine.
She knows what works.
Exactly.
You know, and so we have such easy ways of checking our biometrics. You know, you have a watch that monitors, I have a watch that monitors, and, you know, or they have these Oura rings or whatever you're going to do, but you can create the routine that works for you. For most people, you know, the things that seem universal: quiet, dark, cool, with a consistent routine.
Yeah.
Now, one of the very first studies I read was decades ago, but it was the Stanford tennis team. And they said, look, we want you to actually spend 10 hours each evening in a dark, quiet, cool room. Hopefully you sleep to 10 hours, but if you don't, you need to lay in bed, not move around, be very, very calm. And it was something like after just 2 weeks of doing that, they improved their efficiency of their first serve. And the number that sticks in my head is 17%, but let's say 17% plus or minus a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, at an elite level, that's a phenomenal gain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, when I teach I had a training course this weekend and I teach like, I usually say like the biggest enemy to motor learning is overcoaching. And one of the most beneficial things you can do to improve the motor skills is sleep. So, and that's true. And I think that's, I think everybody needs to find their way of if 8.6 is like the key for most, But I think still it needs to be individual. You need to come up with your sleep routine. But I think, as you said, like put nicely, like find your routine, go to bed same time every night, stop eating the same time every night, have it dark, have it cold, and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's going to enhance your sleeping routines or your sleep a lot.
I might want to add a little bit to what you just said there. So, when you start looking at overcoaching, but how about the idea of visualizing and playing out in your mind the absolute perfect move, perfect form multiple times, and you will fire those motor pathways.
100%.
And they've done those kind of studies where some people actually visualize, other people do the motor skill. And if you visualize effectively, the gains are similar. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I actually saw that one. I think like 10 years ago when I did my first, I was one of the first who did like the Nike Golf Performance Specialist courses in the US. And they had done that study on people that never played golf before. And one group just visualized and one group actually tried to learn to play. And the results were pretty similar, which was absolutely shocking. Pretty cool, actually. All right, on to the next one.
Talk about a good whole body patterning there.
Oh, yeah.
So we're on poop right. And well, in the UK, that gets some chuckles. When I would teach in Sweden, I talk about poop right. They'd say "Bice is nice."
Exactly. Here you go.
Bice is nice.
Bice is nice.
Little blend. Nice must be English though, right? There's a little blend of that in there. But
yeah.
At any rate,
Bice is Swedish.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. There we have it. So poop right. It's not just about our bowels. It's about all of elimination, but I wanted one syllable, or really detoxify right. So we've got our lungs. I would be teaching seminars about detoxification. You can teach about that for a long period of time because we're a very intoxicated world. It's actually estimated that about 25% of all maladies out there are toxin induced. By the way, about 60% are malnutrient induced. And then we throw stress on top of that. We have a real problem there. Yeah. But people would say, well, Dr. Bob, how long should I detoxify for? And I say, well, let's do a little experiment. I'll set my stopwatch. And when I click, let's all stop detoxifying at that moment. Now, keep in mind, the basic element of detox is to exhale, right? So now maybe Johnny Oduya's got his breath holding at 6 minutes, but if we're all going to hold our breath, we're all going to be gone in 10 minutes, and so we need to detoxify continuously. And so it's going to be the skin, it's going to be the lungs, it's going to be the bowels, it's going to be the combination of the liver and kidneys, it's going to be the lymphatic system. And any one of those systems, if it becomes a sticking point, creates more of a burden on the entire body. I think the liver gets a lot of press, the bowels get a lot of press, but they all count. They all count to a very high degree. And I tell people that detox is nutrient dependent, energy dependent, and even to some degree acid alkaline dependent. And what I tell people is it's estimated we process trillions of molecules every single day. That's the guesstimate. And all of those, when they create aerobic energy, create carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide adds the water in the blood to form carbonic acid. So acid is our number one toxin. Yeah. We want to get rid of that and we want to alkalize it. And now we come full circle to diet, because an alkalizing diet will make every person that's a little too acid more efficient. I've seen plenty of elites. We change that acid alkaline balance with good, rigorous attempts with, alkalizing supplements, and their whole game changes.
Yeah. Because I think this is really interesting. See, if you want to break down I heard a lot about like the pH, a lot like you said 7.32, right? Or whatever it is. So if you want mention how should one eat, let's say you have too much acid in your body. What can you do because people in Sweden too, they don't believe in detoxing at all. So 2 questions. One, if you have too much acid in your body, what is the best tips from you that you can do? Or 2, for people that say that you can't detoxify your body, what do you say to that?
Oh boy! Well,
I saw that look on your face.
Well, let's just put a plug in their backside and keep them from pooping for a few weeks, and let's see how they feel. They'll know pretty quick that no, that's really not a good way to go. But You know, when we start talking about alkalizing, understand that there's at least a dozen different buffers, and all of our eliminations get rid of it. And different people have different strengths of buffers. I used to, in my office, measure very precisely with a precisely calibrated meter, the pH to 1/100th of blood, saliva, and urine. And by the way, it's generally accepted that arterial blood 7.35, venous 7.40, then saliva 6.7 to 6.8, because there's an enzyme alpha amylase there, that's the optimal range where that works. And then urine, that one's all over the chart, but first morning urine, my mentor said, should be 5.36 or below, because your body detoxifies through the middle of the night and it should be dumping acids and toxins. But when we come to this concept of alkalizing, first thing we have to figure out is what's causing the problem. So, you know, if someone's profoundly constipated, hey, let's fix that. If someone has liver congestion, elevated liver enzymes, liver damage, liver overburden, let's fix that. If someone's kidneys are a little bit sluggish, different herbs, different things there, let's fix that. If someone has a lung challenge, whether it's asthma, which is a silent inflammatory condition of the airways, often triggered by allergy, let's fix that. Let's modulate that. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a little more challenging. If they don't drink enough water, if they don't move, if they don't sweat enough, let's fix that. But one of the European journals simply said this, you know, chronic low-level metabolic acidosis, not a medical emergency, but it'll decrease the efficiency of every process where people will ultimately spiral down. So it's an oldie but a goodie that tells a good story. The title of the book is Alkalize or Die. And he's right. Everything becomes progressively impaired to the point where it doesn't work at all. But since I like the flip side of the coin, when I teach it, I say alkalize and thrive. And again, hey, I don't, you know, my cancer patients for sure, they have horrific acid, perfect storm of cancer. We could go on a long level there, but acid is a part of it. And then, you know, so whether you're the sickest of the sick or the best of the best, alkalizing has benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it's I love the expression on your face there, but it's just it's ironic how people can think weird stuff sometimes. So that was 7, right?
We got talk right.
We got talk right too. Okay, last one, talk right.
Yeah, you know, and so we start thinking about that, and how does that fit in? Well, again, we're 50 trillion cells. That's the estimate. And there's 3 major patterns or categories of communication molecules. Most of us know about endocrine. That's a big broadcast message. That might be growth hormone, testosterone, thyroid hormone, insulin, whatever. But there's paracrine communication. Cells talk to one another. And there's autocrine communication. Cells talk to themselves. So when I teach about paracrine communication, you know, we'll have several hundred doctors in the audience, and I'll look out and I'll say, okay, as I see that we're here, I don't see anybody sitting on anybody else's lap, you know, because we respect each other's space. And by the way, when food comes by, you're not haphazardly grabbing everybody else's food and eating it, because we respect that they have their food, we have ours. And by the way, when we need to use the restroom, we excuse ourselves and we go someplace else and we don't bother anybody with it. But cancer cells break all those rules. They crowd your space, they eat your food, and they poop and pee all over you. And we call that a real bad invader there. And so it's estimated, by the way, that nearly everybody, and it's not, you know, the 96%, it's like 99.9% of people create cancer cells every day. So we want that immune system balance to take it out. And so we need that immune system communicating. We need the cells communicating. We need those broadcast messages communicating. And when we have that, well, things are better. You know, think about any relationship where you have poor communication, you're immediately going to have a challenge. Good communication, you can work through almost anything.
Yeah. And any tips there to enhance that communication inside our bodies?
Well, we already mentioned acid alkaline. That's a big factor. Every hormone, every enzyme is pH dependent. Yep. But then we've got, for cellular receptors, there's a couple things that happen. There's charge, oxidation reduction potential. So we want to have the right amount of antioxidants, but there's also a change in shape. And so when the cell membrane is flexible with the right balance of omega-6 to omega-3, which if we go back way back, we're talking about 1.5 to 1, where people in the US, there's something like 15 to 1, 25 to 1, wow. Omega-6, which can be pro-inflammatory, omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory. You know, we've got some challenges. So the right fats, very important for cell communication.
Wow, this is just so much knowledge. So now everybody that's listening in, now you know what I meant in the beginning here in my intro about Dr. Rakowski's brain. It's so much information. I used to love to talk to you. I'll continue to talk about it. We kind of touched about it, but just for I know there's a lot of athletes out there who's listening to this. So gut health and performance. I want to expand a little bit more about the gut health because I think in the future we're going to talk a lot more about the gut. I think there's a lot about the gut that tells the story how you really feel, how you really can perform, or if you're actually been able to perform at your highest level or not.
Well, we already talked about the brain being so critical, but
Yeah.
if I ask most people, hey, where's most of your brain chemistry?
Yeah.
And what they don't realize, it's in their gut. Now, people realize they've had a gut feel, but now we begin to realize that the food that we eat is going to impact serotonin, dopamine, GABA, glutamate, the major neurotransmitters, acetylcholine, whether we're talking about memory or firing of the neuromuscular junction. So all these things are critical. And there are terms now, there's things that they call psychobiotics. For the dog bark there.
No problem.
Psycho, like mind and brain, you put the right balance of bugs, it creates a nice enhanced brain chemistry that's calm and happy and at peace. And the wrong, you could even be psychotic. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with the wrong balance of bugs.
Yeah.
When we start talking about food, one of the things that we teach in nutrition, you are what you eat. Well, that's kind of true. You are what you absorb. So now we're going to go to the gut. But what's most true is you are what you don't eliminate.
Yeah.
So you want to make those good food choices. You want to digest, and you want to make sure the elimination is proper. And we can certainly talk about the gut in terms of elimination. But transit time, 18 to 22 hours. You eat something, you're going to get all that you want from it, and then it should pass out of the body. Again, 18 to 22 hours. And if you're doing that, awesome. If you're not, guess what? You're absorbing stuff you don't want to absorb.
And so how important would you say that like athletes maybe start to turn around when you go to the toilet and see what's down there? I mean, the shape and the color and everything, just to see how their guts are really feeling. What do you say about that? I mean, it has to be really important, right?
Oh, of course it is, and one of my favorite talks and another great trainer, Paul Chek, likes to talk about the poop police, and it's so fascinating. You and I live in a world where this is okay conversation, but there's people that don't talk about it. It's like not socially acceptable.
Yeah.
I'll tell a funny story. My kids all know now, my kids are adults and I'm a grandpa, and that's, as rewarding as it gets. But when my son was 6 years old, my wife took him, to the mall shopping. And Jacob is like me. He doesn't want to be there while she's trying on dresses and stuff like that. So he kept saying, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom. Well, after he said that about 5 times, Kelly looked at him and said, Jacob, you can't have to go to the bathroom. He says, yes, I do. And Mom, I have to poop. Think about all the toxins I'm absorbing. So
at 6.
Yeah, at 6. And it shows my kids make good choices, across the board because they learn that. Now, it's never too late to learn. I don't care if you're 85 and haven't learned that it's important to poop. Actually, most 85-year-olds know that by now.
Yeah.
But whatever your age, hey, it's important. Let's make sure you're going regularly. And regular is not once a week, Yeah.
That's so true. I just love it. So we're gonna, I know we can talk about this forever, and we're gonna do another episode. I promise you that, because I love to talk to you. Let's end this with, because I think supplementation is a big one. And I'm a big one on that. I'm doing a lot of supplementations every day, and been doing that for many years, and it suits me a lot. And I mean, last year, I've been going big on vitamin C. I've been reading a lot about vitamin C, and I see the benefits. And it kind of like the Ganoderma we were talking about. It's almost like it's too good to be true, that the pharmaceutical companies doesn't want this to come out, how really good it is. Do you agree about that? Do you like vitamin C, or what's your take on vitamin C?
Well, Let me tell you, my primary mentor in nutrition is PhD researcher Jeff Bland, who was Linus Pauling's research director. And now Pauling wrote the book on vitamin C. And here's what he said, you know, most mammals, with the exception of 4, and we happen to be one of them, have the capacity to make vitamin C. We don't make vitamin C. And he says, if you take a 150-pound goat in times of high stress, they're going to make about 15 grams a day. And so if you're 150 pounds, guess what? That's 15 grams a day. Pauling did that and was still actively writing scientific papers at, I think, 97 or 98 years old. So it certainly worked for him. But what I like to talk about is comprehensive nutrition. So I'll share with you, I was lecturing at a conference in the early 2000s. And one of the keynote speakers was Barry Sears, and he wrote his book, The Zone. And we had something back then called the USDA Food Pyramid. And Barry Sears put a copy of the USDA Food Pyramid up on the projector. And he says, if ever there was a terrorist-like plot designed to destroy the health of the world, this was it. Now, you can go to the Global Nutrition Report and find out that in 2020, top cause of death on planet Earth, malnutrition. And every country suffers from malnutrition. It says that within the report. Developed nations, overconsumption, undernutrition. We don't have anything in the food. We keep eating more. We get fat and sick because we're not getting the nutrition we need. So I created my own nutrition pyramid. And at the base of the pyramid is food, right? Eat real food, clean food, not too much, not too often, every color, every day in a way that honors your genetics, your physiology, your body goals, mostly plants. Now we go, next run is superfoods. You know, what are the top things in nature's pharmacy, God's pharmacy? Consensus number 1, reishi, also known as Ganoderma lucidum. Hemp is somewhere up there. Different types of algae are up there, like spirulina. You know, some are going to throw in aloe. But, you know, look at these superfood lists. And these are foods that basically have, like, you know, superhero properties.
Yeah.
Then, Andreas, I'm going to go to like medical foods or functional foods. I've got 7 rungs. Why? Because I like those 7s, right? And when you start looking at a functional food, it's actually proven to have a health benefit, and it's a fortified, clean food. And I tell people, if it's a medical food, and you and I have used these together, guaranteed potency, guaranteed purity, proven effectiveness in human clinical trial with every nutrient recognized as safe. Then we dot the I's, cross the T's with a very good broad-based multivitamin, multimineral. Then we're going to go with probiotics. Then we're going to do omega-3s, and there's an advancement in omega-3 that was nominated for a Nobel Prize, but omega-3s are processed in the body to a category of compound called resolvins. And the reason they call them resolvins is with those on board, everything resolves faster. Injury, infection, depression, you name it. And there are high-quality nutraceutical companies that have that in a capsule. And then finally at the top, D3K2. You know, D3, huge deficiency around the world. Now, how do we throw in onesie twosies like magnesium? You know, athletes probably need more magnesium. Vitamin C, people under high stress, more vitamin C.
Yeah.
If you're male, probably need more zinc.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, so we can go from there. But those 7 rungs, that's where we go.
It's amazing. So, for anyone who's listening to this, I think you're gonna need to listen to this episode a few times because there's so much information. Anything you want to add to all this that you feel like? I mean, we can talk forever, but
well, we could, but and we will again. But
yeah,
you know, if I would add one thing, people like you are making the world better with consistent, rock solid, proven in application information. You're not coming from a position where you read something and go, oh yeah. No, you've worked with athletes, elite athletes for an extended period of time. You know, you've also helped your mother who had a very serious surgery long on, and you found out that God's pharmacy really outdid man's, even though both probably were needed, you know, to a certain level. Yeah. But, you know, so you've seen all ends of the spectrum within your family, within your client base, and you bring rock solid information. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Plug into Andreas as much as you possibly can and share the content. Our world needs this, I believe, more than ever.
I really appreciate that, my friend. And it's been an absolute honor to talk to you again. And I hope we can do this again soon. But more than anything, I hope I can see you live soon because it's been way too long now after this so-called virus out there.
Well, it has been, and you know what? Just because of our restrictions, I'm not going anywhere. You know, they have some rules. If you submit to a medical experiment, you can leave the country. If you can't, we're going to make it really hard on you. So for now, I'm homebound. I'm enjoying Texas, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I will start traveling again, so I'll be back in the US in September and soon. So I'll swing by and we'll
All
have some
right.
fun. But I hope I talked to you before that, my friend. And thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for everything you shared. This will help a lot and help a lot of people perform better and live longer and better. So thank you.
You're very welcome. The pleasure is mine. It's always wonderful to connect with you.
Thank you, sir. I talk to you soon.
All righty.
All right. Bye bye.